You ever wonder how those tiny, everyday choices you make might actually reveal some huge, hidden patterns? Well, today, we're doing just that. We're going to dive into millions of New York City taxi records to see how a decision as simple as paying with a card or with cash can unlock $1 million strategy for a business. Let's get into it. So, imagine you're the boss of a taxi company. Your number one goal: help your drivers make more money. You've got this absolute mountain of data. But where do you even start? What's the one question you could ask that might just change everything? Well, that's the mystery we're about to unravel. All right, so the mission is super clear. We need to find a way to increase revenue for every single driver out there. But here's the catch: no guesswork, no hunches. This has to be driven by pure, hard data, by the real evidence of how people ride and, you guessed it, how they pay. And that leads us to our main suspect, the core of our whole investigation. It sounds almost too simple to be true, right? But could the payment method itself actually be tied to how much a person pays for their ride? This is the one relationship we absolutely have to figure out. Okay, before we can get any answers, we've got to put on our data detective hats. We're starting with this massive, messy pile of raw information, and our first job is to sift through all of it to find the clues that actually matter to our case. And when I say massive, I mean it. We started with over 6.4 million individual trip records. Think about that. Each one is a tiny piece of a giant puzzle, but honestly, most of it is just noise. Our job is to find the signal in all that static. And this is where the real cleanup begins. You can picture it like a forensic team sweeping a crime scene. First, we threw out any duplicate or incomplete records. Then, we filtered for only the payments we care about, card and cash. Next, we had to get rid of all the impossible data. Trips with negative fares or zero distance, that's junk. And finally, we removed the really extreme outliers so we could focus on what a normal, everyday taxi ride actually looks like. So after all of that careful cleaning, our mountain of 6.4 million records gets whittled down to a much more manageable 2.2 million high-quality, reliable clues. This is the dataset that's going to lead us to the truth. All right, we've got our clean evidence. Now for the fun part. It's time to start connecting the dots. We're going to visualize this data, follow the money trail, and see what kinds of patterns start to pop out. And wow, right away, something huge jumps out at us. It turns out that more than 2/3 of all passengers prefer to pay with a card. Cash isn't even a close second. This is our first major clue about customer behavior. People are reaching for plastic. And get this, the plot thickens. On average, people who pay by card don't just pay a higher fare, they also travel longer distance. There's a definite card premium going on here. Now, why could that be? Well, maybe card users are more likely to be business travelers expensing their rides, or maybe there's just less sticker shock when you're not physically handing over cash. And there's another really interesting layer here. The data shows that solo riders are by far the most common type of passenger. They make up a huge 40% of all card transactions. And as you can see, as you add more people to the taxi, both card and cash payments actually become less common. It really suggests that our key customer is often riding alone. So we've got some pretty interesting patterns, and we've got a strong theory. Card payments seem to mean more money. But, and this is a big but, in the world of data, are these patterns real, or could they just be a big coincidence? We need to prove it. So it's time to take our data to court. And the tool we're going to use is called hypothesis testing. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is just like a trial. We're going to put our theory up on the stand and let the evidence decide if the pattern we saw is statistically significant or if it could have just happened by pure random chance. So, in this trial, there are two competing stories. On one side, we have the null hypothesis. That's the default assumption, kind of like innocent until proven guilty. It says there's no real difference between card and cash fares, and what we saw was just a fluke. On the other side is our theory, the alternate hypothesis, which argues that, yes, there absolutely is a real, meaningful difference. So, what does the evidence say? We ran the numbers, and this little number right here, the p-value, well, that's our smoking gun. You can think of it as the probability that we're wrong, the chance that the null hypothesis is actually true and this was all just random luck. And as you can see, that probability is incredibly, unbelievably small. And that leads us to the final verdict. We can confidently, overwhelmingly reject the null hypothesis. The difference in fares isn't a coincidence, it's not a fluke, it is a real, statistically significant phenomenon. Our theory has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Case closed. Okay, so what do we do with this verdict? Proving the theory was the investigation. Now it's time to turn that powerful insight into a simple, actionable business plan to help those drivers we were talking about at the very beginning. And here it is, a simple 3-step strategy based entirely on our findings. Step 1, actively encourage customers to use their cards. Step 2, give them a reason to. Incentivize it. Maybe offer a tiny discount or some loyalty points. And step 3, double down on security. Promote how safe and convenient card payments are to build that trust. It's a clear roadmap to higher revenue for drivers. So, we started with a simple choice, card or cash, and we ended with a powerful business strategy that was hiding in the data all along. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What kind of hidden patterns are your own daily choices revealing about you?